Good afternoon everyone, and welcome to our Women and Super webinar, where we'll be discussing the importance of creating a legacy of financial independence. I'm Lisa Kate, Chief Member Officer at Brighter Super and your moderator for today. I begin today's by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land from across Queensland. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples of today here. Before I start today's panel presentation, it's important to understand that the information and examples contained in this webinar are general in nature and have been prepared without taking into account your individual objectives, financial situation and needs. It's important when making decisions about your superannuation option that you obtain the relevant product disclosure statement and target market determination and consider your own personal circumstances. You can access these documents and privacy policy and financial services guide from the Brighter Super website. Today, our panellists will be discussing wealth building strategies for women at all career levels, leadership and career advancement through financial planning, managing financial health during major life changes, and the importance of superannuation in legacy creation. Our panellists joining me today have over 30 years' experience across the financial services and people sector. Firstly, we have Kate Farrar, Brighter Super's Chief Executive Officer. Kate's leadership has been instrumental in guiding Brighter Super through strategic growth and development. Next, we have Allanna Kelsall, the Fund's Chief People Officer, who has global experience in strategy and people leadership to drive Brighter Super brand promise and organisational transformation. And finally, Megan Rose, our Advice Standard Manager. Megan has experience in financial planning and learning and development, helping people achieve their definition of financial success both now and in retirement. Please note that this webinar is being recorded. An email with a link to the recorded session will be sent to you, along with details on how to access the resources that we'll be discussing today. So keep an eye on your inbox next week for this valuable information to help you leverage the insights and the strategies that we share with you today. If you would like to ask a question, please click on the live Q&A tab. It's located at the top right-hand side of the webinar screen. We will have some questions to start with, and your Q&As will be forwarded through to me toward the end of our webinar. So to start off, I am going to be asking our panel members some questions, including some that have been pre-submitted by members today on the line as they registered. So Kate, let me start with you. You've had an extensive working career in finance spanning several roles and industries. What have been the keys for you to set up your own financial future?
Thanks very much, Lisa, and can I just say how fantastic it is to be here on nearly International Women's Day, celebrating all the wonderful women, not only in Brighter Super but also across our member base. So for me, what has been a key in setting up my financial future at a personal level was actually, strangely, my divorce. I got divorced some decades ago, I have to say, and I was in a position where I was actually able to take a disproportionate amount of the settlement in super, and it has really set me up for the future. It's given me confidence and it's meant that the pressure was taken off. So I guess from that, what did I learn? I learned just how much of a difference it can make to your confidence about your own future if you start saving early.
Fabulous. Allanna, have you had similar experiences? And if so, what did you do?
Thanks, Lisa. As we've talked about, my experiences were vastly different to Kate's, unfortunately. So at the time, I also went through a divorce. It was in my mid-30s. I was living in the USA at the time, and unfortunately, I had to restart at that particular point in my life. And then being new to the industry, so I'm only recently new to superannuation, and being in the US, 401k, very different system to our superannuation here. I've been playing catch up, so it's not something that I was familiar with, and I've had to learn a lot. So the three things that I've taken away in my journey is get informed. It was up to me to ask the silly questions. The only silly question I found out is the one that I don't ask, because that's going to make the difference in my world. Then talk to others. It makes you feel less alone. It's interesting how many people are on similar journeys, and so just doing it together is quite helpful. And then finally, get some formal advice. I think that's important, that you're not alone and that you are seeking that guidance. So it's not about recovery, it's about creating a brighter future.
Great, well done, Allanna, thank you. So I myself, I've been married for over 30 years, same man. And I haven't been through a divorce. So it does highlight that there are different experiences amongst women, and we can learn from all women depending on what they've been through. So for those of you seeking guidance, Brighter Super can offer financial super health checks. And I thought I might explain a little bit about what a super health check is, because it's a great place to start with your superannuation if you're looking to have superannuation demystified. So regardless of your circumstances, a super health check allows you to speak to one of our people face-to-face, over the phone or via video. It's a free service. It's offered within your membership, so you're already paying for this service, and we'd love to be able to help you with that. We'll be talking to you about general advice, and it will be about a comfortable retirement and how to get there. The different ways to grow your superannuation and the extra contributions that you can make, such as salary sacrifice, and how to consider the other superannuation accounts that you might have, and whether or not consolidation makes sense for you to cut down on duplicate fees, but also what you need to consider before you make that decision. And finally, we'll talk to you about nominating your beneficiaries, why it's so important that your beneficiaries, your loved ones, will have financial security through just that simple act of making sure that your superannuation is noted with a beneficiary. So we have lots of types of advice that you might be interested to hear about. So I might ask you a question, Megan. So Megan, what advice do you offer women at different stages of their career for financial planning and building wealth?
Look, Lisa, self-education is so important, especially for women. Understand what options you have at different stages of your career, and make sure you're making the most of that. You mentioned about the super health check, and I mean that's a great service that we offer to our members. It allows people to get some advice around the different contributions, insurance, and also how your money's invested. That how your money invested can make such a big difference long term. It's about starting early. The earlier that you can invest, the better. And it doesn't always have to be large amounts of money. It's, whatever you can sort of, afford. To that end, it's, taking that bucket approach. Pay yourself first, making sure that you've taken care of yourself before sort of looking at other things. So we all know we've got to sort of have a bucket for the necessities, bucket for medium term, but always think about that long term as well. You mentioned about the Super Health Check, but we've got a range of education resources on the Brighter Super website. We've got some really great calculators. So we've got a retirement income calculator that you can actually put your information into, and it will project on what sort of income you can expect in retirement. We've also got an investment calculator. So again, talking about how comfortable you are with investing and what that could look like, long term. Education options, we've got some great online member tools. One which I really like is a budget, talking about budget and the importance of allocating money out. And there's also one, and obviously we're talking about International Women's Day, there's an online education module on women and superannuation. So there's a lot of information, but again, that self-education is so important.
Fabulous. So what are some of the behaviours or financial habits you recommend that are particularly relevant for women?
Yeah, look, I like this question because this is something I'm actually quite passionate about. Don't be afraid to talk about money. As we get socialised, girls and boys get socialised differently, unfortunately. Boys are taught sort of around investing, whereas girls are still sort of very much taught about, consumerism and buying things. Don't be afraid to talk to your children, especially girls, around investing. Again, that long-term investment. Also budgets. So important. And I don't mean about, when we hear the word budget, we often think that we're depriving ourselves of something. It's not about depriving yourself. It's just understanding where your money goes. If you can understand where your money's going, then you can better allocate that money out for that long-term savings, such as, your retirement and through superannuation. And then finally, understanding that early impact. I talked about, before about, saving as early as possible. And that can make such a big difference. So using the retirement income calculator on the website, I actually did some and I will say they're very rough numbers, but just to give you an example, a 25-year-old starting out, if that, you contribute $5,000 as a 25-year-old, by the time you turn 60, that's going to increase your end superannuation savings by $240,000. That's a big amount. Let's fast forward. Let's say you didn't do that, and many of us haven't, and that's okay. It's always, the best time to start is yesterday. The next best time is now. But if you looked at that and you sort of started when you were 50, to make up that same difference, you're going to have to contribute almost $21,000 a year. So by starting early, you can really see the difference of that time value of money.
Oh, that's fabulous. That's really good information. So essentially, don't be afraid to seek advice and to navigate your investment options to tailor your financial plan that fits your personal circumstances. It's really helpful. Thank you so much. Allanna, as someone who shapes the fabric of workplaces, how can a corporate culture foster a supportive environment for women's finances?
It's a great question, and as we know, the world's changing, we're becoming more aware of social impacts of historical legislation and the gaps that we've got amongst that. But it's really important that we're all doing our part to create a better future while those legislative changes catch up. So let's talk about the motherhood penalty of yesteryear and current year. And so it's important with parental leave that organisations are opening that up to both parties in a relationship, whatever gender that may be. And then to have those conversations about shifting superannuation during that time so that it is shared equally amongst both parties. I think that's something we can all have those conversations early rather than just hoping for the best. It's about removing experience, years of experience on job ads, so that it neutralises gaps in career as one of the parties actually takes some time off to support children growing up. So important to do that. Or carers, as we know, it's typically the eldest daughter that takes the carer responsibilities. So we've got to start neutralising those things. And then finally, workplace flexibility. So making sure that all parties are available to shift back and forth in the responsibilities. So it's daunting, but what I would say to organisations, you don't have to do it all, just in the Nike way, just do it. Start somewhere, start small, start having the conversations, just make a difference.
Oh, that's fabulous, and I feel like we're in really good hands, so thank you so much. Kate, could you give insights into how companies can support the financial resilience and advancement of women through their career life cycle?
Yes, I think you've heard some of the really important elements of the settings from Allanna that a company can put in place to ensure that women are at least in a position to be equivalent to men as they progress through their career. But I actually think the most important one is the cultural one, and it's about fostering a culture where people are okay to have a conversation, to speak up, where people aren't afraid, where they can ask for things. Unfortunately, though, any career advancement it's a combination of effort by the employer and by the employee, and so it's really important to understand how much we each individually have to do as well when we're thinking about these things. It is important to sometimes, take your heart in your mouth and go to your direct supervisor and talk about money, ask for the raise, ask for the career development path. I think what's important from an employer perspective is that that supervisor then agrees to it and goes on the journey with you.
Yeah, that's excellent. So we'll be having a conversation. All good. So in terms of career advancement, Allanna, what would you say is crucial for women to consider?
Yes, it's something near and dear to my heart. I would say be brave. Go for the big jobs. The studies show that men typically apply for a job when they meet 40 to 60% of the criteria that's outlined, and women it takes about 95 to 100% of the criteria before they apply. So we're traditionally applying for 1/5 of the jobs. And so we've got to stop that. So coming back to Australia, I can absolutely say the tall poppy syndrome's still out there. So we've got to fight against that. It's not about ego, it's not about dominance, it's about being brave and actually taking responsibility for your own career path. And then I would just say, again, go for it. I think if all of us here on the panel had waited for somebody to hand it to us, hand our opportunities, none of us would be in the positions that we are. So I would say just I'm going to sound a little bit American here, just back yourself. But it's important that you do.
Take some courage to do that.
Absolutely.
So that's great advice. Thank you. So let me see, Megan. So Megan, considering that women generally have lower superannuation balances, how should women with families approach their superannuation planning?
Yeah, look, that's a really interesting question, and it's one that many women ask. And certainly Allanna talked about the motherhood penalty. Sadly, that is still alive and well, and we see that in the superannuation balances. But there are ways that you can help make that up. And again, it's going to always depend on your personal circumstances, but there are options like superannuation splitting. So your partner can split their superannuation contributions with you. There's also spouse contributions. So your spouse can make a contribution on your behalf and get a tax benefit for doing so. And then things like government co-contributions. So for lower middle income earners, the benefit of getting an extra contribution from the government up to $500, again, depending on your own circumstances. But that's where it comes into play. Like, you need to get advice because every situation is going to be slightly different. So by getting advice, you can really understand what benefit, which particular contribution, if any, are going to be the best for you. So, to that end, we actually do have advisors at Brighter Super that can help you with that. So as part of the administration fee for our members, we have what we call intra-fund advice. And what that means is you can get advice on your superannuation around things like what contributions to make. So in this case, what would be the best contribution for a person who may be out of the workforce for a while. Also looking at the investment option. And I know you mentioned that before. Having that investment option, making sure it's the right one for you, super important. As well as insurance, making sure that your insurance is appropriate for you and not eroding your benefits. There's things like superannuation consolidation. Maybe you've got two or more funds. It might be appropriate to consolidate that. But again, seek advice. It's so important to make sure that the decisions that you're making are the right ones for you and that you're guided in the right direction.
So are there any other ways that you can grow your superannuation balance?
There's so many ways. We have essentially through contributions. So there's two types of contributions. There's concessional contributions, which are those contributions that we make before tax. And then there's non-concessional, which are those contributions that we make after tax. So with the concessional contributions, we're probably all very comfortable with superannuation guarantee contributions. So that's the ones that the employers put in on our behalf. But you can also make a contribution and claim a tax deduction as well. Now, there are limits to that. At the moment, that limit is $27,500 per year. But again, depending on your circumstances and how much you've accumulated in super already, you can use your unused concessional contributions. So depending, again, on your personal circumstances, if you're under $500,000 at June 30 the previous year, you may be able to use some of those what we call unused concessional cap. Now, good news is, come 1 July, that $27,500 that I spoke about actually increases to $30,000. So you've got the opportunity to get some more money into super. Again, earlier the start, the better. On the non-concessional side, so we talked about, said about that's the after tax. So that's after we get paid, we can put money in. There's lots of types of after-tax contributions that you can do. And, mentioned before about the government co-contribution. We've got, the spouse contributions. But on that end, you can actually put up to $110,000 a year into superannuation. If you're in a position to do so, you can also bring forward that by 3 years. So essentially putting in a lump sum of up to $330,000 using those this year and the next 2 years. So lots of different ways that you can contribute to super. But, and I probably sound a bit like a broken record here, it's so important to get personal advice to make sure that the decisions that you're making are going to serve you the best for the long term.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. But for a lot of people who are watching us today, they'll be saying, I'd love to get financial advice, but I've heard it's really expensive. What can you tell us about the cost of financial advice?
Look, The short answer is it depends. It depends on what you're seeking advice on. So for something that you might, and it also depends on your career stage. Starting out, you may only want bite-sized, advice. So just maybe on your investments, what investment is right for you at this point in time? What insurance do you need? Is my insurance appropriate? Those types of things. As I said, we offer an intra-fund advice, which allows you, through your administration fee, free of charge, to actually speak to an advisor about that. If you're looking for something more holistic, and certainly, as our lives get more complicated, that's going to be the case. We take on debt. We're looking at, perhaps investments outside of super. Where you want someone to consider, something more holistic, there is a charge for that. But I can't stress enough, it's an investment in your future. So by getting it right now is going to save you a lot of time, money and heartache down the track. So again, so important to get advice.
Right, sounds like a good investment. Great.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. So we've received lots of pre-submitted questions from our audience today, many of which can be answered with our webinar series that we have on our intranet or on our webpage. They're free, and if you register for our webinars, what you also get if you're unable to attend is you'll get an email with a link. So please register when you see the webinars coming through. They come through your email box. When they come through, register, and if you can attend, fabulous. We love to have you with us. If you can't, you'll have access to the recording. We have some questions that some of our members have already submitted to us today, and I am going to kick off with our questions, and I think I'd be heading to you first, Megan.
Sure.
So I'm starting to think about retirement, one of our members has asked, and making additional contributions. What options should I consider?
Yeah, and I mentioned before, there's lots of different contributions, and I felt like I sort of probably used a lot of numbers. The first thing I would say is educate yourself. Go to our website. We've got lots of information about the types of contributions you can make. By understanding what options are available, it really does sort of, forearm you with what's, what options you can consider. I then recommend going to see an advisor. You take advantage of our intra-fund advice team. They're there to help you with the types of, exactly that, the types of contributions that are going to be the most appropriate for you at your time of life. Again, also, the insurance and the investment options as well. So education, seek advice.
Great. Thank you. Kate, I'm going to swing to you. So my next question comes from a member who has asked, how long before retirement should I move to a more stable level of investment?
Yeah, that's a really great question, actually. I was reading something the other day, it was an article, and it basically said that you make something like 60% of your investment returns over your whole life on your superannuation after you retire. So what that means is that it's really important not to consider that, that the point of retirement is the moment when you have to go down to put everything in cash. It's very important to consider that you've got a long time where people are still earning money on superannuation balances. So it's also important, though, to understand your own risk appetite. We have some great calculators on our website which people can go to and have a look at, which will help them to work through their individual risk appetite. But look, the important thing is actually, as Megan has been saying, just get some personal, individualised advice that will take into account your own personal circumstances, your own personal risk appetite, what you want out of retirement. And she mentioned that there was a service that we offer called intra-fund advice that is offered as part of our membership fee, and you can just book it basically by ringing up the contact centre. And that is a fantastic service where you can ask about what is the right investment option for me to be in at this point in my journey.
Yeah, great. And you can book online. We've got an online booking service as well, so please feel free to book an appointment. The next question, let me see. I think I'm going to take this one. So our next question, our pre-submitted question is, how do I go about my super as I approach retirement? It's basically, how do I know when I can retire? So this is a question that lots of members ask us, and I'd say if I was thinking about those members entering retirement or nearing retirement, there are two questions that are really common, and they are, how do I know if I've got enough money, and how do I know how long that's going to last? As a result of a lot of member feedback and a lot of experience in the industry, we have now created an advice option that provides you a retirement health check. So retirement health check will have a look at your superannuation balance today and your contribution pattern, and we will forecast forward to say, if you do nothing except continue on exactly the same path, this is basically what we predict your retirement balance would be. And not only that, this is how long it will last. The conversation will happen with a qualified financial advisor, and you will receive a statement of advice at the end of that, which will have some of the numbers in there that you can look at later. The best part about understanding this advice is it will tell you whether or not you are on track or off track. Because when you find out you're off track, if you're still a few years away from retirement, you can make a difference, you can make some changes. If you're heading into retirement, it might determine what sort of investment option you choose in retirement, but it might also be about having a look at what sort of government support can be used to complement your superannuation balance so that you can have a comfortable retirement. A retirement health check can be booked with one of our financial advisors. You can book online, call our contact centre, or make an inquiry through our super health check service as well. So throughout the period of today's webinar, we've had lots of questions that have come through, and I do have some time that I'm going to be having a quick look at these questions, and I'll be handing those to the person best qualified to be able to answer the question. So let me see. Oh, there's a question that was my question for the very end, and I'm going to save that one. Megan, you were talking about salary sacrifice, and one of our members, Renee, has asked, when is it a good time to salary sacrifice into my super?
Renee, I would say generally early as possible. Having said that, when you do make a salary sacrifice, you are subject to preservation rules. So you do need to consider that. You know, if you're very early on in your career, you'll have a long time before you can access that. But with that time value of money, the earlier you can invest, the better. The other thing I would say, and again, I know I keep harping on it, but it is so important, speak to an advisor. Have a chat with one of our intra-fund advisors. They'll understand your situation, exactly where you are in your career, and what type of contributions, whether it be salary sacrifice or perhaps even after tax, is going to be the best contributions for you to make.
Fabulous, thank you. Kate, when is the right time to consider drawing money out of superannuation?
Well, obviously there are a series of rules that tell you what you're allowed to draw out and when you're allowed to draw it out, and I think we just heard from Megan about the preservation rules. I think it's really important. But what I would say about drawing money out of superannuation is that, similar to putting it in early, the longer you leave it in, the more you're actually going to be making on it, and it's coming back to that time value of money. The superannuation system was set up as a way of, I guess, ensuring that everybody was able to save in a sustainable way for their retirement and for their later life, and obviously our lives are getting longer and longer, and so it becomes a more and more important part of how we expect to live, as we pass sort of 60 and 65 and we stop our working journey. I think what this tells me, this question, is that everybody's circumstance is different, and so it is very important to seek professional advice and personal advice. And that actually does become more important as you're coming into the moment of retirement. It's interesting, we were talking about this the other day when we were thinking about our retirement products and our retirement offerings. And coming into retirement, everybody's on the same journey, really, which is a saving journey. And there's a lot of technicalities, but the technicalities apply to everybody. And so it's quite similar, everybody's experience. But once you get to retirement, actually, that's your whole life. And as we know, everybody's life is different. And I think what's very important to understand is that when you're thinking about retirement and when you're thinking about taking money out from your sort of superannuation coming into retirement, that is it's a cost relative to what you might make of it on it and what you might have later on. And so in those circumstances, definitely seek some personal advice that's right for you.
So superannuation is about accumulation while you're working, but it's also about a retirement income when you've retired. So your superannuation doesn't, your funds don't necessarily leave the superannuation environment and the beautiful tax environment of superannuation. After you've retired, you can stay with Brighter Super.
Absolutely, and not only does it have to be in a pension account, you can actually keep it in your accumulation account even if you are not working anymore, even if you sort of think of yourself as having retired. And again, what I would say is that there are so many different ways that you can actually have this structured. It's really good idea to talk to somebody about it.
Great. Thank you, Kate. Megan, the final question I'm going to give us from our audience today is, how much super should I be aiming to have in retirement?
Yeah, wow.
It's the big question.
If I knew the answer to that one, it's going to depend. It depends on your own individual situation. And, you know, what just sort of going on from what Kate was saying, know your numbers. Budgeting is so important. You know, I mentioned before about it's not, you know, budget's not depriving yourself, and that's how we feel about it. It's understanding where your money goes, understanding how much you actually need to live on. And, you know, sometimes when you do the numbers, it can be a little frightening about how much we actually need just to maintain. But then think about what you'd need in retirement. You know, hopefully you've paid off your mortgage, so that'll be something that's, you know, you don't need money for. You know, some of your insurances, you may not need those anymore. But understanding how much you need to live, that will then start determining how much as a lump sum you will need to create that income stream for your budgeted amount. You know, ASFA have some information on their website which, you know, sort of talks about a modest and a more comfortable retirement, and they're great starting figures, but superannuation is personal. It's a personal journey, isn't it, Kate? Everyone's retirement's going to be different, and what they want in retirement is going to be different. So know what know what your income number is, and then we can always work backwards.
Right, excellent. Thank you so much. Now, I'm going to ask one final question, and this is a question that one of our viewers today also asked, so I'm pretty excited that we pre-thought this one. So each of you are going to get exactly the same question, so have a think about this. Allanna, Megan and Kate, what advice would you give your younger self, or a girlfriend, niece or your mum, early in your career to ensure that she is set up for retirement? So Allanna, I'm going to start with you.
I think you've heard it from each and every one of us today. Start early, and if you can't start early, start now.
Excellent. Kate?
Yeah, I think for me it's about get learning. You know, it's really complicated. I'm actually, you know, I'm not originally from superannuation. I came in through the trading side, and there are so many rules. It is quite complicated because it's part of the tax system. That's how it's been set up. But you can learn about it. We have some fantastic materials on the Brighter Super website. Please have a look at them. Please talk to our team, get some general advice, book a super health check. You know, if you need some specific advice about intra-fund, about your investment options or your contributions, then book an intra-fund. But the most important thing, I think, is to take charge yourself and just get learning.
That's really good advice. And Megan, what's yours?
Look, it's going to be around, again, that income figure. Understand your budget, know where your money's going, so you can start carving out that money early. You know, Kate, you mentioned about, you know, the education resources. We've got one on our website which I really like. It's about building good money habits. It's something that you go through the resources section on our website, and I want to say it runs for about 10 minutes, but it's really good. It gives you some really good ideas around your relationship with money, and again, you know, where your money's going. Understand that.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think for me it would be about financial discipline. I'm obviously a lifelong learner. I still don't have that one mastered, and I do tend to find that I think I can't possibly live without that particular item. I love a good shop, but financial discipline is important, because after those shoes have worn out, if that money had been sitting in super, I'm telling you, it'd be growing. And as I listen to you today, I've learnt some of those lessons. So I would like to have been more financially disciplined from a younger age. or from an older age. We'll see how we go.
It's a tough call, though.
Yeah, I know.
It's
We're
so
older.
shiny.
We still have to enjoy the journey.
Yeah, we do. Okay. Thank you for letting me off the hook. Okay. So thank you so much for joining us today. We've had some incredible panellists, so thank you to Allanna, to Megan and to Kate for their invaluable insights and their advice today. As we close today, I am going to encourage everybody to take a proactive step, please, towards securing your financial future. Remember to book your super health check and seek professional financial advice. We can do both of those for you. We can help you in that journey. Be part of our educational webinar and seminar series. When we send you an email, open the email. We've got some great stuff you're going to hear from us. And Kate in particular sends a monthly newsletter out to you, and it will have some important investment updates as well. So open the emails, read that, and start to really get educated in what we send out to you. Over the coming days or up to the next week, you will get a webinar link from us, and we're really thrilled that you'll be able to rewatch this as well or share this with a friend if you'd like to do that. You'll be able to listen to the information and connect in with some of our services and our offerings that we've talked about today. So let's take charge of our financial well-being and let's work towards a secure and brighter future. Thank you all so much for joining us today.